And welcome to Unhinged History, the history podcast where two friends compulsively learn a history story separately, then join forces and word vomit on top of each other the stories that we've just heard and learned.
The visual you just gave me is wild. That's Teresa. I'm Angie.
Yeah, and that is Angie.
Yeah.
I am not the husband. I am the friend who tells
No,
stories.
but right now the husband has lightsabers attached to his belt, so if that gives you any indication of my day.
Godspeed. They like, how the hell are you?
Well, I'm currently standing in the same room as a lightsaber wielding Jedi who is getting ready to walk out the door for church. So, I mean,
that is word salad. Do you smell toast?
No, popcorn.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, it was speaking of that statement, was chilling in my room reading a book, and Hubs comes in. He gets near me and he's reclining, looking at stuff on his phone. And all of a sudden he jets up and he goes, "Is something on fire?"
Oh gosh.
I'm like, "I'm not cooking anything. Why would I be in here if I hit something on the stove?" And he runs through the house and he comes back and he goes, "Do you smell popcorn?"
Oh no.
And I'm like, "Okay, are you stroking out on me?"
What are we doing here, bud? You're
The-
gonna need to clear this up for me.
Yeah, well, there was no stroke. There was no popcorn. We were fine. Negative on both counts, but still, it was just one of those like, burr.
But it was the end result that somebody had to go make popcorn after that, because the few times that I've smelled popcorn, it's because someone else in the office, like 300 feet away, has popcorn on.
And then you must have
And
popcorn because if you smell
right.
like chocolate chip cookies and there's no chocolate chip cookie in your vicinity, it is a bad time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for understanding. All right. Are you ready for my story? Because it is totally unhinged and everything we've ever dreamed of.
Well, I mean, hot damn, because I thought I was bringing that, but if you are, go.
All right. I'll start with my sources. I'm going to leave one out though, because the title for it is just too good to share to begin with. So,
You don't want me to
there
take the
is
headphones off so you can dump them all?
no.
Okay. Carry on. You do you.
All right. Who is Lady Muse? A Tabler article. The Flamboyant Lady Muse. It's by something called Kyle Chronicle. It was like a history, like menagerie of delightful facts about this particular woman and England. Um, do you want to come over, Valerie, the remarkable Lady Muse from the Londonist? Are you ready
That
for
is
this
a
next one?
very specific headline.
It
Anyhow,
is,
go ahead.
which is funny because it really has no. I don't know why they called it that, because it really had. There's nowhere in the story that it's ever said again. But banjo playing Victorian prostitute.
Okay, so you are bringing the goods.
Yep, that was a BBC article title.
Of course it was.
Yeah. The Harmony in Pink Portrait of Lady Muse. It's from the Frick collections, from the Frick in
Frick
New
or
York, which
freak?
Frick,
I've
Frick.
okay.
Yeah, it's a special collections museum in New York. And are you ready for this very last one? You're gonna love it. Your eyes are gonna light up, I guarantee you. The London beer flood of 1814.
Oh, thank God. We don't talk about the beer flood of 1814 enough.
No, we don't. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, there's no way. There is no way we've been blessed with such a personality at and a beer flood. No way.
Did you honestly
So
not know about the beer flood?
the beer flood was a mid-researched learned fact. And I was like, wait a minute, that's the beer flood in London. Like, I mean, there have been multiple, right? But like, that's the doozy. No way. And so I then had to sideline part of the story for just a second to talk about it, because
Okay.
because
It's the beer flood. You can't skip over
exactly.
that. This is like when I heard pirates for the Battle of New Orleans, and it was like, yeah, I'm going to sidebar this one.
Yeah, that I thought, okay, my initial thought was, what, I could actually make these two very separate stories, but it's just too good to not give it together. So here we go. I am going to tell you the most delightful story of Valerie Susan Langdon. The BBC has her birth as 1847, and it's the BBC, so I'm going to go with it. There are conflicting dates for her anywhere between 1847 and 1852.
That's a
But because
tighter
it's the
range than
BBC,
some, and I agree with defaulting to the BBC.
right? Like I thought it could be. We've seen worse. 1847 to 1852 is not terrible. So sometime within that time frame, she was born. Not a ton is known. However, the Frick collection, who houses one of her paintings, says that she was born in 1852 and that she was the daughter of a Devonshire butcher. So, I don't know where they came up with that information, but they have it, and they're who houses her portraiture. So I'm sure that they have more, you know, concrete evidence to support that. I just couldn't find it anywhere else. So there's that. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about her parents other than dad was potentially a butcher or her childhood. However, it's what she does with herself later in life that I wanted to talk about, anyways. By
No,
the 1850s,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question. We're
Yeah.
talking about the word frick. Like, is that a euphemism? Are they trying to avoid saying the word fuck? Are they like,
No, no, it's so the frick is like, okay, specifically in the Victorian world when you were a well-to-do family and you would go on tour and you would collect all the things from the whole world, art and jewelry and architecture and things like that.
oh yeah.
Okay, so it's the Frick family collection.
Okay. Okay. Because I have been trying to make meaning for
Yeah,
this for
no.
longer than I should have. Anyhow.
Sorry about that. I should have that probably would have been the easiest way to explain what the Frick was.
I mean, because
To
I,
could have
I
just
was
started with that.
yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. This is why I'm here to interrupt.
Well, thank you. Thank you for interrupting. So yeah, they collect all the goodies, they bring them back, and then out of some labor of love, one either the wife or the husband builds a monumental building and stores all the house or houses all the collection of their goodies, and then 75 years later it turns into a museum. Like we hear this story kind of a lot actually, which is
Tale as old as time for rich people trying to get tax write-offs.
yeah, really it is. When you think about it, it's kind of funny. But anyway, so by potentially the 1850s, because she would have been about 10 by this point, it may have been a little bit later, they believe she was acting. But we all know what acting in Victorian England could have implied, right?
Do we? I
We
feel
do.
uninitiated in this one.
Um, think.
I mean, because
Oh,
I
I'm trying to
know
think
that
of
I
another good
know
one
the
we had.
Victorians had kind of a closet kink thing going on. Like I remember reading like an article that had excerpts on erotic literature samples from the Victorian times, and some of them talked about an
Okay.
excess in body hair, and it was very disconcerting. Like
Okay, so
I felt so gross.
I agree with you on that. You're kind of on the right track. So England is, especially in this time and the couple hundred years before that, is notorious for acting. Like I'm an actress could also imply I'm a prostitute.
At the age of 10?
I don't think she was prostituting out at the age of 10. I think that there is some contradictory evidence about her younger life that she vehemently disputes, but because there's no real solid like paper trail, people are left to piece together like she may have been doing this by this time, but she was either born in
Oof.
1847 or 1852, and sometime within the next 12 years she goes to the stage and she says that she very much was just an actress, like a
Okay.
classy actress, like you would imagine. Um,
Plays, not
plays,
plays.
plays, exactly. Yes. Um, either way, it's pretty clear that if she was actually an actress, she wasn't an actress for a terribly long time before she met her husband. But before I get there, the BBC has this great quote. She claimed to have been an actress prior to her marriage, but accounts imply that she worked as a banjo playing prostitute and barmaid under the name of Val Reese at the Casino de Venison in Holborn.
I mean, look, little a column A, little a column B. Tax records weren't
Just
exactly watertight.
okay, not only that, but like the image in my mind of a banjo playing prostitute is pretty much
Ding, ding, ding,
pinnacle.
ding, ding, ding,
Like
ding.
I could not get that out of my mind. I absolutely love it. And I also believe that that might be a little bit true for at least one point in her life. And a little bit later in my story, you'll see why.
Hey, can I make a quick
Um,
joke?
yeah,
So the devil went down.
that's it.
That's it. Yeah, get it?
Yeah,
Okay.
good job.
All right. That's all I had.
It was beautiful. You did great.
Or maybe the devil went down on Georgia. Okay, I'm done. That was too far. I feel like
Oh,
okay.
wow.
All right.
You're going to have to add that explicit rating now.
I can't take it off because occasionally one of us says shit. I know.
Oh my gosh.
Don't choke on your Pepsi.
Almost did. You almost took me out just then. So are you familiar, because I mentioned where she may have been working, are you familiar with dance halls in England at the time?
No, but strangely, I have been in a 1850s or a dance hall that was built in the 1850s, but in Oregon.
Okay, you know what? I imagine they probably had similar problems. And the only reason I bring this up is because so it's like I said, she is said to have met her husband playing the banjo and a barmaid, side piece prostitute at the Casino de Venison in Holborn. And that was basically like Holborn was the poorer end of town.
Okay. Like I can't
Um,
imagine that you put a brothel pub in the heart of the high-end zip codes. You know what I mean?
yeah, at least not that we visually can see from the outside, right?
Right. I mean, you might call it a gentleman's club, but there will be no banjos.
e- exactly. But what's interesting about this, and I looked into it because I was curious exactly what the Casino de Venison in Holborn was because I didn't picture it like a casino we see today. So
Fair.
basically, in England at the time, there were all kinds of dance halls, and ranging from some guy playing in his kitchen to elite family homes that quote unquote taught dancing lessons. And the reason this is because it's not that it's like this enterprising thing where people are going to make a buku amount of dollars. So essentially, these dance halls, quote unquote, is what I'm going to say, they exist in pretty big numbers around specifically London at the time because of licensing and taxes.
This checks.
Doesn't it? And it made me laugh so hard because the basic gist is somebody wants to provide a place for the young people to dance, a place to congregate and have a good evening. However, licensing, which I find to be a really funny way of like to me the upper echelon and the people that have the housing and the space to say that their home is quote unquote a dance school, and they hire like maybe some really bad dancers, but the idea is we're teaching these young people how to be elite society members simply because that gets them off the hook.
Mm,
I'm here for it. Let's do it.
right. We need more of that in the world.
Right? I think it's funny that it is specific to the dance hall too, and not like we're trying to actually educate people. We're literally just trying to throw a party, but they're not letting us, so we're gonna do it like this.
To quote the Beastie Boys, you have to fight for your right to party.
It makes me wonder if perhaps the Beastie Boys knew this about Victorian England dance halls when they wrote that song. So anyways, sorry for that sidebar, but it made me laugh so hard when I was looking into it because that's just wild. So she says though that she never worked for the Casino de Venison. She actually met her husband while she was acting in a far more respectable place in Brighton, where the rich go to take a day, take a picnic, enjoy, take in the evening, if you will. Would you
I
care to know who her
feel
husband is?
I feel
Go
like
ahead.
we've all lied about where we met somebody. No, mom, I didn't meet them at the club that you told me explicitly not to go to in Southeast Fresno. No, no, I
The
met them at the
library.
library, which isn't
Yeah,
the name of a bar.
but it will be now because that's freaking genius on your part.
I
At the
mean,
library.
there is a bar called The Office, and the receipts that you get have itemized for different drinks that are named like the stapler, pens, pencils, copy paper.
Are you serious? We also have a The Office. It has been a standing bar for as long as I can remember, but I have no idea what the receipts look like. So now I have to go check. That is my brain is so in love with that idea. So her husband, because now we're at the part where she gets really entertaining. She meets her husband, Sir Henry Bruce Muse, who, by the way, has little more than a Wikipedia page about himself online. Like, nothing is known about him, but there's all kinds of stuff known about her, and I think that's amazing.
I mean, anytime we can subvert the patriarchy by knowing about the wife.
And not the husband, like truly delightful. So I will say this though, he was a baronet with a country home called Theobald's. When he inherits his father's title, he also inherits a brewery. Um, it's fun to say, I guess, in a terrible way, that he took over the brewery and inherited the title a little bit early because his dad went insane. Um,
Oh,
Syphilis will do that.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you would appreciate knowing that it was syphilis.
I don't like being connected to syphilis as a positive.
Typically it's not, but in this case, you're the one that's always like, syphilis.
I mean, like, it's very rarely ergot poisoning when you look at history. But how common is it syphilis?
You're not wrong. It's like 100% accurate, right? And when I read that, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that this is an element of my story today. I
Right?
have to share it. I
I mean,
can't just gloss over it.
this is the equivalent of Dr. House going, it's not lupus. But for you to be like, it's syphilis. I'm like, of course, this checks.
Doesn't it? Yeah,
Right. Like roll the die,
absolutely.
it's syphilis or they lost the war.
Yep, exactly. So dad, like I said, dad goes out a little early because of syphilis, so he inherits both the brewery and the title. Remember that Henry's middle name is Bruce, as in like Robert the Bruce of
Okay.
Scotland. Okay,
Okay.
so they're the Scotland Bruces.
Of the Scotland Bruces, you
Mm-hmm,
know.
yeah, the king and all. Um, so as I was reading about that, like I thought that was just a really fun fact, but that's when I learned this. That same brewery that he inherits is the Horseshoe Brewery, who in 1814 fell to be the unlucky victims of the London beer flood.
Oh. So this is
Mm-hmm.
post flood. This is before the syphilis took his father full down the
Before
dark
this,
path.
yep,
His dad was
yep.
cognizant during this fun time.
Yeah.
Actually, would his dad have had the thing? Because that you think about how many years it takes to inherit stuff. Would his dad have been owner of the brewery, or would he have been next in
Um.
line?
Well, it's 1814, and he takes ownership. the younger or the husband, Mr. Bruce, takes ownership of the brewery between 1876 and 1880.
Yeah, so that's 60 years.
So yeah, no, maybe he was the heir then at that point. The dad was. So this is his
Yeah.
grandfather's estate at the moment. And the London historian's blog has this to say, and I'm just going to read it because it is absolutely perfect. Back then, London's drinking classes were supplied by dozens of competing breweries dotted around the capital and its outskirts. The competition between some of these manifested itself by their building even bigger vats. Prior to going into commission, the brew houses, as PR stunts, would typically use these massive containers to host swanky dinners for their directors and their guests. I did
This
not know
is
that.
this is the equivalent of when, to bring more awareness to dinosaur fossils, they hosted a dinner inside the reconstructed skeleton of a dinosaur.
Yep, same exact feel. Yeah.
I feel like
Because
the dinosaur would be a cooler atmosphere, but I mean, a
hear
big
me
beer
out.
vat is also decent.
Dinosaur in the big beer vat.
I'm here for this.
I'm here for it too. Idle rich. What are you gonna do?
Become idly
So
rich. Step
exactly.
one.
The London historian's blog goes on to say that the monolithic porter vat of Misters Muse and Co. had a capacity of over 1,000,000 pints. On the fateful day at about 6 p.m., one of the steel bands weighing over 500 pounds split, allowing a pressure explosion that could be heard 5 miles away.
Ugh.
The tsunami of beer smashed down the brewery wall, destroyed immediately 2 houses, and severely damaged many others, plus the Tavistock Arms. The
Hi,
beer
State
then
Farm.
flooded.
State Farm. I know you've seen a thing or two, so you know a thing or two.
But have you seen this?
But sorry, you were saying. I really.
You really had to go. I don't blame you. So the beer then flooded the basement of the rooms and numerous adjacent buildings. A huge throng immediately assembled, many of whom had the presence of mind to harvest the beer in pots, pans, teapots, jars, and bottles, anything that could come to hand.
Oh, this is the whiskey fire all over
All
again.
over again. Many others simply embarked on an immediate free piss.
Free piss?
Free piss up, yep. So my guess is
So
they're just peeing in the beer. That's the image I have.
I I dude, I get that boys like to do things like climb to high buildings and urinate over the sides of them. Why, I don't know.
I
But
listen.
what
I want
what?
to believe. Perhaps we have an English listener that can confirm the term piss up, but I'm taking it as exactly it is what it is.
I'm confused and disgusted, and I don't know if I want clarification.
Me either. So they
Okay.
said it smelled like blood for months.
Blood?
No,
Beer doesn't.
I said the wrong word. It was so worth it for the look on your face, though. Do
I don't know if it was worth it. Nothing about this is satisfying.
you remember the guy that ate a puppy?
You're never going to live that down
I'm
or
never
let me
gonna give
live
it
it
up.
down.
I'm never gonna let you down or give you up.
Okay. Just because of Terraria. Anyhow, so it smelled like beer, I presume? Please say beer. Or was
It
there so much
smelled
pee that it smelled like
like
urine?
beer for months. Why blood came
Okay.
out of my mouth, I don't have a good reason for it. It just did.
I'm very concerned for your mental health if blood is what fell out of your mouth.
Well, okay, think about the size of my screen.
I don't,
I
you're not
glanced, I
helping.
saw the B, I said blood. Here we are.
Okay. I'm
Sorry.
concerned for the rest of the story. This is foreshadowing as
It's
far as
not.
I'm
It's not.
concerned.
It's really not. Do you want to just
Okay.
scratch
No,
that and start
no,
again?
no, no, no. Carry on,
Okay.
please. I want
You love
listeners
that
to
part, huh?
understand what I'm in for and
Nah.
why I make the faces I make.
Well, you're gonna be so disappointed when you find out blood's not involved again.
Relieved is the word we're looking for. Relieved.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, it smelled like beer for months. To quote the Londonist, when Sir Henry married his bride, he married her in secret, and it caused scandal. But while she was obliged to live always outside of polite society, the impediment never prevented her from enjoying a flamboyant and fascinating life. And did she? After being shunned by his family, because essentially when they married her, his family was like, oh, hell no. Nope. And they were mean to her and they were rude to her. But she does what all boss babes do and had them written out of the will later in life. So
I
get
love
it.
that. I love that. When in
Me
doubt,
too.
kick him in the pocketbook.
So she did. Now, please allow me to tell you some more of her delicious escapades. Remember that her and her husband are super rich. So, what do you do when you're super rich and your family shuns you? Do you have any ideas? What would you do?
I mean, I would probably do a lot of things like lots of trips abroad, lots of very big things. If I already had like a name in theater, like I would become even more eccentric because everybody already hates me. So I don't have a reputation to protect.
I'm loving this for you. I really am because that's exactly what she does. Um, she kills them with her eccentricities. She
Please move
kills them
aside
with
for
her.
this taxidermied polar bear that I picked up from a vintage antique shop. I don't believe in going for any more, but this one's already been preserved, so it's good.
You are on it. She persuades her husband to purchase Christopher Wren's Temple Bar, a 17th century structure designed to celebrate the Stuart dynasty. It covered the whole road. She actually had it taken brick by brick from its original home to being placed outside their house. Because she
It's
she
too
wanted
hard to stumble back from their bar. I want to bring it out to the front yard.
she wanted to have a grandiose place for her guests, such as the Prince of Wales and Mr. Churchill himself, to enter when they came a calling, and they did come a calling. She partied with the prince. So her family-in-law can pretty much stuck it, like
Prince
when
of
you're partying
Wales
with the
in what
prince.
year? I just need to know this.
Prince Albert,
Okay.
who would later become King Edward the 7th. So that prince.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The seventh and not the eighth. Are you sure? Wait.
5, 6, 7. He wasn't the king for very long, like maybe a decade.
Okay. I ask because the story I cover involves the Prince of Wales, but next one. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Anyhow, carry on. Carry on.
um, so if that's not crazy enough for you, how about a swimming pool? She has that installed at her house in Victorian England, which is probably not something you see every day.
It's a bit anachronistic.
Love it. And if that's not disco enough for you, she also installs an indoor roller skating rink.
Did I guess they did have roller skates then, obviously, but I don't know. Like my brain says when I was 6, I wanted rollerblades, so roller skates were the year before. But I know that is clearly not the case. But I feel like that's 100 years different from where it should be.
When I read it, all I could think of was ice skating rink. And I had to read it multiple times from multiple sources to understand that it was a roller skating rink. But it makes sense when you think about it. If we already had roller skates, like ice skates, roller skates wouldn't be too far from the imagination.
Daystore Daily says that they were invented in 1819
So there you have it.
by a French
Wild, huh?
inventor. And
Figures.
that was 3 wheels inline. So those were rollerblades.
That's crazy. So the
And
rollerblades were first, huh?
which doesn't make sense. Like
I cannot wait to take that information to my husband.
it looks like 1863 is the roller skate as you think of it.
with the
I'm j-
four wheel 2 and 2.
yeah. I feel like I should stop and actually read this article as opposed to like scroll number.
That well, okay, so yeah, so our Victorian friend is roller skating around her estate.
And
um,
according to this, like by the 1880s, many people preferred to skate in rinks, mainly in New England.
so there you
Okay,
go.
I'm gonna pay attention to you now.
Now we know, huh? I really didn't think it was going to be the roller skates that threw you off. I'm so delighted that it was.
The book
um,
did it first.
sorry. uh, the other thing that she had in her estate was a gun room, and that's probably why we have information on her now. Because in the last 3 to 5 years, one of her rare 28 bore rifles went up for auction. So attached to that comes interest in, like, a renewed interest in the person, right?
Yeah.
So thankfully, it came up for auction in the last 5 years. So now all of us are like, oh hey, what about where did it come from? Here are my next two and probably my favorite bits. No, the whole thing is my favorite bit. She is said to have once attended a hunt on elephant back.
That is exciting.
Could you imagine? I'm thinking like Downton Abbey, you know, when they're all mounting the horses and the dogs go running. Could you imagine Lady Muse literally stomping up to the start point on her elephant? If polite
I
society is
would
going
want
to shun
everybody
you,
else on horses while I come up on elephant.
yeah, that's exactly what she did.
Okay, not everybody was on elephant.
Just her.
I'm for this.
100% me too. I wish there was like a painting of this because the imagery is just absolutely gold. But let's not let that be her most flamboyant moment, although it's up there. But at one point, her sporty open carriage was pulled by zebras.
Now, I mean, we need more. More of that.
Living her best life. I just want to wake up in the morning and be like, you know what I want today, darling? I want a pack of zebras. Can you zebra me? I want to be pulled about town. I want to go to tea with Clarice, with my zebras.
I went to see the menagerie at the Tower of London, and I saw stripy horses. Edward,
Zebras.
Edward, I ask you, I need them. I need more. I
Yes.
need a team. I
Just pull
must
my
have them
carriage. Let's go
now.
shopping. And so she did. And I love that for us. Not just her, for us too, because we get to know it. So let's not forget, though, that she, because of her richness and her Englishness, she was also a patron of the arts.
How
And her
could you
husband
not
had,
be?
I know, right? Her husband had 3 paintings commissioned of her, 2 of which are on display. The third was destroyed by the artist after a kerfuffle and falling out. The artist in question is James McNeill Whistler, who is considered one of the greatest of his generation. I think you would know who he was immediately upon seeing his image. So if you would like, I would love to screen share with you.
Please, please. Now, is he the one who also painted Whistler's mother?
Yes.
Okay. See, I am not a
So
completely uncultured swine.
so I'm gonna show you and hit share. So here we have Whistler's mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the painting that we all know Whistler's, like, that's his, as far as I think Americans are concerned, like that's what we know to make him
Yeah,
famous,
Whistler's
right?
mother, the old woman in what looks like the puritanical headdress. You just see her profile. She just
Mm-hmm.
looks aged and in black with that white headdress, which is just, I would have complaints. I'd be like, Whistler's son, why could not have you made me look more beautiful?
Why is it just my profile, darling?
I should be
What
glamorous.
what I think is interesting about this, and I've seen this painting like 1,000 times before, but the drapery looks so modern, like straight out of like 1990. And I didn't notice that till I was uploading this picture to my story. But here are the paintings he did of her. Here's the first one. It's called Harmony in Pink, and it's all the way on the next page. So it's Harmony in Pink and Gray. Look at Lady Muse.
She has curves. She's serving bust, but it is covered because she is a lady. And she has got this saucy glare from underneath her hat that just says, "Come try and see my eyes."
Mm-hmm. Here's the other portrait he did of her. And all I could think of is Breakfast at Tiffany's, the original.
Oh, yeah, but with a huge ass ermine coat.
Mm-hmm. And that she's got this like sparkly diamond, what would you call it? A cornet, maybe? Or I don't really know.
I mean, it could be that. It could just be a golden headband. I mean, either way, she is well accessoried.
Yes, indeed. So this particular piece was part of his dark collection, which I think is amazing. He went through this like moment in life where he just really worked in black, and this is part of that, which I think is awesome. This particular painting hangs in the Honolulu museum, which I think is interesting. Did not see that coming. Like, how did you make it all the way to Honolulu? But okay, I'm here for it. And then this little ditty I love so much.
Okay, so
Right here.
they are seated, her and Hubs are seated outside. He is seated in front with what looks like they're both seated. Well, he's seated on the ground. He has a rifle in one hand that is also between his legs. He is looking off into the middle distance. There is a mastiff looking in the opposite way. And then she is seated comfortably behind him, banjo in lap, strumming a ditty.
Which makes me think that she was, in fact, a banjo playing prostitute.
But for all we know, literally the only the only evidence is that picture, and they're just like, that banjo playing hussy.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing I thought, and honestly, given everything else we know that she's done, I wonder if maybe she, for whatever reason, just knew how to play the banjo, but like started the rumor about herself for storytelling value.
I
Oh
mean,
no, no,
Sarah
that wasn't
Bernhardt
me.
did that kind of stuff.
Right. Like, if I'm a well-to-do lady with nothing to do, except for collect fine things and have a good time and screw with my in-laws that hate me, I might let it slip that it's possible I was a banjo playing barmaid. But I digress.
That
That
started
is
at the age of
probably
10.
yeah.
The
That
seasoned
is
banjo playing barmaid hussy.
that is my favorite historical picture, I think, so far. Like everything about it. I think it wouldn't be as entertaining if I didn't know her story, but knowing her story makes it so much funnier to me. So those are the works. Well, other than the photograph, the works were done by Whistler, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they had a falling out and he destroyed the final painting. So unfortunately, we will never get to see that part, which makes me a bit sad. But then she goes on to do the wonderful thing that all of our English colonizing friends do, and she becomes an avid collector of antiquity.
I
Her
bet you
collection,
she ate mummies.
oh,
It's
probably
of
did.
the time period. She
She
was eating
probably did.
mummies.
I'll get there. And then you can take with that information what you will. Her collection included almost 2,000 Egyptian artifacts.
Oh gosh, boy, I called it. I
Sure
called it.
did. Um, Supposedly, and I don't believe this one, but there is a tall tale that she reputedly had a cursed mummy in her collection, and it was sent overseas, and it was the one that sank with the Titanic.
The one that got away from the spice cabinet.
Yeah, I don't know that I believe that one. More likely, um, I think actually her mummy ended up being sold. That sounds so awful to say, but the mummy she possessed probably ended up being sold to William Randolph Hearst. Um,
The
at her
story
death.
really is the who's who of colonizers.
Isn't it? Yeah. Um, there is so if you're curious, her mummy's name, if I can get the correct spelling of it, is Nesimn, Nisms. And there is actually a ton of information specifically about him and her specific to her Egyptian collection information online, which is really awesome.
That's really awesome, but it's also like, I mean, I've got so many
I know.
feelings about this because, like, the Victorians are the reasons we don't have mummies because they literally ate them. And here we are, like, we know a lot about hers. It's like, yeah, because they were people, they had lives.
Yeah. And I hated saying that, but like, how else do you. The mummy she stole? She paid for it, but it's a person?
Yeah,
I'm really conflicted about it.
it's one of those like it's like dark tourism. You're morbidly excited about it, but you also feel really dirty about the whole concept.
Yeah, like I need to go wash my hands for sure. I need to
Like,
bathe.
I got to go sit in the shower and stare at a
Cry.
wall. Yeah, like there's going to be some interesting feels that the therapist and I unpack next week.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is interesting about it is oftentimes, at least this is my impression, when people talk about like the Victorian era, for example, when there was all this exploration and all this bringing home of goodies from all over the world, and the excuse for it is, well, we collected it and now it's beautiful and it's going to stay forever safe because it's in a museum or it's in a private collection. So now we're the stewards of these antiquities. Well, who are the stewards of those antiquities before?
Yeah,
Like, can't
how
you leave
how are
them
they
where you
so
found
well
them?
preserved that you should be able to get a hold of them?
Right. Like, do you not think that they were doing just fine where they were and that the people, like, for example, Egypt, that they couldn't be cared for? Because I feel like they were doing just fine and they are especially doing fine with it right now. So,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't I don't fully understand how you can get away with saying like it's because we collected them all that they're in such good state. Is it? But that's my hot take. It drives me nuts. Sadly though, she was widowed in 1900 and she spent the next 10 years of her life continuing to use her substantial fortune for a good time and also to help others. During the Second Boer War, she heard that there were British forces under siege in Ladysmith, and so she ordered at her own expense 6 naval cannons and sent them directly to Lord Roberts in South Africa, um, offering after her offer of assistance was rejected by the War Office in London. She was not having it. She's like, okay, forget you. I'm just going to handle this myself. And sent the guns herself, which I think is, I mean, if you've got the money, right?
Right.
Do the thing. Well, after the war was over, a one Sir Hedworth Lambton, 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 yeah,
I'm not going to be the one to correct your sayings or your spelling or your
Sir
pronunciation.
Hedworth Lambton, the commander of the naval brigade that was at Ladysmith, literally came in person to thank her for her gifts because they made all the difference for them.
Wow.
She was so taken with him and having no children of her own immediately made him the heir to her estate.
Thank you for the cannons and the ability to retire.
The only thing that he had to do in order to become the heir to her estate, do you have an idea of what it might be? Because it is the
Okay.
most boss thing ever. I absolutely love it.
I don't know. This could be anything from take her on a trip to some area and serve as her bodyguard to um write a scathing letter to her in-laws about like how they are missing out from this woman just because they slighted her. Like, the whole pretty woman, you've made a big mistake, huge mistake.
Yeah, no, all he had to do was change his last name to hers.
So how do I spell that one more time?
Meux. And when she died on December 20th of 1910, got my dates backwards, he willingly changed his name by royal warrant and inherited the estate and a substantial interest in the Meux brewery.
I love this for him.
Right? He does some pretty cool things. Two more fun facts. The Meux Brewery, why can't I say the two words together? Meux Brewery was founded in 1764. It was actually, it was founded and then it was moved into the Horseshoe Brewery building site where we know that the Great Flood happened. The London flood happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then after her care, it went under a number of different mergers and takeovers before finally ceasing trading in 1961.
That's a decent run.
Like, whoa. And I love this part. According to Tadler, Lady Meux left an indelible mark on the property, the estate that was hers, which today is known as the award-winning Birch Hotel, and her vivacious memory lives on in the Valeries and the flagship Zebra Riding Club restaurant, headed up by Chef Robin Gill. And they
What is the chef's name again?
Her.
Is it because
Robin Gill, Robingill.
Okay.
And I've decided that I'm going to start living my life as flamboyantly as this woman, and I'm going to need some zebras.
Okay, but in the absence of the funds to go out and purchase the permits and acreage needed to support the horses, are we just painting them on the sides of the car? How are we leaning into this early on?
I haven't worked out the logistics. They're gonna have to be workshopped. Okay.
Okay, I'll start.
Do not ruin this for me.
I'm not going to. I'm in for it. I'm joining
okay.
alongside.
Okay. And while we sit in our carriage being pulled by zebras, we'll have a pet polar bear.
I don't want a pet polar bear. They're endangered. But again, I did find a taxidermied specimen from the 70s that is massive and only $7,000.
Actually, you know what? Scratch the pet polar bear. What I want is someone to come around with us in a polar bear suit that's convincing enough to scare people.
I'm here for this.
And like wear a top hat and a monocle.
Polar bears are massive, though. I don't know if you recognize.
We can have a specially made carriage.
Okay.
And 6 zebras. So that's the story of Lady Meux, and I love her. I'm so glad that, like, you know how oftentimes we get people that we're like absolutely in love with, and they have this like just either heart-wrenching moment or this like, oh my God, that's disgusting moment. Hers the whole time was just like, okay, so my in-laws slighted me, so I wrote them out of the will.
And it's like, okay, this is tea talk and we're here for it. So then what happened?
Yes, like she is the epitome of exactly what I thought about eccentric, flamboyant London in the Victorian era. And I'm 1000% here for it. So that's my story.
I love it.
I'm sorry it was so chaotic.
I got to learn about roller skates, which I didn't see happening today.
You're welcome.
I don't think we have time to go through my story. That was delightful, but also lengthy. That was a thorough portraiture.
I was aiming for thorough portraiture. I mean, I could not have scored more when I scored the heir to the London beer flood. I mean, really.
I mean, you had me at banjo beer made sex worker.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, so maybe that might have been a heartbreaking moment of life, or not her pinnacle moment, but what if for me, I'm choosing to believe she loved every second of it. Like, I'm going to become a wealthy heiress one day, and I'm going to start little rumors about myself that may or may not be corroborated in 100 years. But in the meantime, I know how to play the banjo. I can sling a few beers. I'm an actress.
Truly. And I mean,
Yeah,
you know, look, your family's going to say the things they're going to say about you, whether you married into
exactly.
them or you grew up into them. But
And at the end of the day, this is how I took it. At the end of the day, does it really matter? Because her husband clearly adored her. So, like, who cares what the in laws think? He's having portraits commissioned of her.
right, right,
So I think they probably had a really great time together. There's stories about they had an estate, like in a country estate where they would host all their friends for like massive game weekends. And I think that that's probably what that photograph of them sitting outside with the mastiff is from. But like the amount of publicity and people that they drew to them was so high that their daily, like, their notation of housing and benefiting their friends is like in the paper, like, oh, they shot 26 deer today, da, 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 because Victorian England needs that kind of gossip.
right. Well, I mean,
So
and
I
that
think
was
they're having a good
news.
time.
That was news,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And so I think they're having a good time, and I'm 1000% here for her. So when I become old and have zebras, you'll know where it came from.
Where the idea came from.
Yeah.
I'll still have questions about where you got the zebra.
They're probably not something I can just get. I don't think there's
I
permits for that.
exactly. You know, you got to
I
work
mean,
in
unless I were to
conjunction.
go
You got to
old.
get some keepers, some staff to help support and maintain them.
Mm. Do you think it's the same kind of staff that would care for like the horses at Churchill Downs? Or do you think it's like a specialized staff?
It
Because
has to be a specialized staff because you look at zookeepers in general,
yeah,
and they are a very unique education, you know, and you need to
yeah,
have that sort of background to be able to support that. Like, if you're going to have a barn, then you have your equine specialists.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, your lady's
yeah.
maid is not going to be your valet or your valet, I think is the actual term, who is not going to be, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's got a specialist job. Your driver is not your valet.
Yeah, but now that you say that, I really want my lady's maid to be my valet. So,
The valet's the
be
man's.
done it.
So, do you really want your lady's maid to be the one who puts the pants on your husband? Let's
Yeah,
think through
now
this.
that you say that, you make a good point. The valet does belong to the man, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
these are very
okay, can I
specific traditional gender roles.
I would like my lady's maid to be she who drives the zebras.
Okay. So
The coachman.
your bullet for other duties as assigned just got a bit more adventurous.
In fact.
Okay. So, on that fantastic note, if you've enjoyed hanging out with us, because we've enjoyed hanging out with each other, and by proxy, if you've made it this far, you are our people, then we would love it if you clicked that subscribe button, if you rate and reviewed, if you dropped us an email. We are at unhinged.historypod@gmail.com. And we might even post something to social media occasionally about these things. And on that note, goodbye.
Bye bye.